Hello, everyone, and welcome to another talk here. So, we're going to discuss technique and give you some exercises that that you might use to play or apply some of these techniques when you're playing. So it's important, I'll say, kind of from the beginning here, that that you kind of work with someone who has been playing that can give you some feedback on hand position and maybe some things like that. To watch you and look out for the issues. And so that's one issue, I think, with the current trends, you might say, in guitar playing, that folks try to work from watching and looking and from the outward kind of perspective, which is very good, very powerful. But when it comes to technique, you really have to be on the lookout for very, very detailed information on all the nuances of maybe someone's hand position and all those kinds of things when talking about or thinking about technique. So that's kind of an important issue I just like to bring up as far as kind of the internet is concerned, is that it's just it's a one-way kind of thing in a sense, where you can watch somebody do something, but it's very hard to get every single detail, every maybe motivation of what's happening with the playing. So oftentimes, and I've talked about this a lot with folks, is I'll start out with warm-ups, and doing things slowly with what I might consider kind of good technique. So I'm going to share the screen for those who are watching the sorry about that. So I've got a little some foot percussion down here. So I'm going to change my screen, but I'm going to keep everything very audio only friendly as well for those who are checking this out as a podcast. So I'm going to record this, or I am recording this as a podcast, and I'm streaming. I'm also recording this as a video, which I've started to do recently, just for kind of user experience on the YouTube channel. Okay, so a few things to consider with technique, and one is that the hands really, if you can keep them relaxed as possible all the time. So try to sort of have the fingers at ease, have the hand very relaxed, right? And then try a few maybe little patterns and things. So maybe try an interval. So let's say a whole step. Okay. And try a whole step on different frets. So that's 7 to 9. So move that around a string. Okay, now what I'm doing there is plucking. Every note, right? And then start to notice, and just observe as we move up the neck, the angle of the hand and the frets. Now, for different types of playing, you might have your hand in different types of positions. So having the palm, kind of the base of the fingers, parallel to the guitar neck is one type of technique that's really very helpful, and you might say kind of classical. There's one word that kind of comes to mind, right? So there, let's say you might say, okay, well, I'm gonna pick a series of intervals and play them all in one position. So do some chromatic tones, so half steps. So you might notice on the whole steps, maybe I was playing a little bit at an angle. Okay, so where the fingers are kind of pointing really a little bit towards the top corner of the guitar. Now in this other kind of technique, we might play where the fingertips are really kind of pointing straight back at the thumb on the opposite side. So the finger 2 especially, and the thumb is fairly low. Well, I would say maybe 3/4 of the way. You can still kind of see the tip of it. Okay, so you can move that around. Maybe do a chromatic passage, or just go kind of one fret. So I'm just moving my first finger up one fret and then moving over. And so far I'm plucking every note. Okay, so those are kind of a couple of basic hand positions that I kind of consider. So if I'm doing maybe more of a rock, blues, maybe country or that kind of style, I will tend to kind of have my fingers a little bit more to the at an angle where they're kind of almost diagonal to the frets. And that can really help, and I talked about this quite a lot in the lessons, which is I guess it's really kind of challenging to do, but you try to kind of get a little bit of the side of the finger, let's say the first finger, to touch the side of the neck, the underside, almost like you're a fret away, kind of depending on where you are. Right, and that helps with vibrato. You kind of pivot between the thumb hanging over the top side of the neck and the side of the first finger on the side of the guitar, and then we're rotating the forearm. Okay, rotating rather than taking and doing vibrato with the fingertip and the finger, right? So I would say that would be a little less accurate, harder to control, whereas doing a bend over here like that, even if you're using a different finger, it's going to be a little bit easier to more accurately control that and get to a certain note or control the vibrato in kind of a certain way. Now the advantage, to playing all this right right in a row like this, and it's sort of a different way of holding, you get really kind of really nice clean tones. The fingers are able to reach maybe a little easier. But I think going back and forth between those two is helpful. When we think about the pinky and how much smaller it is than the other fingers, it is really helpful for using the pinky to have the palm of the hand a little more parallel to the bottom of the guitar neck. Now there are a few things that probably really hard to pick up on as far as what's happening with little details on the fingers here. And that is the string control. So controlling the strings or preventing them or preventing unwanted notes from ringing, especially open strings, is an issue that we want to kind of tackle. So we have, let's say I'm playing with the first finger here on string 3, fret 7. We can touch string 4 a little bit with a fingertip, so that's something I'll do. And then the underside of the first finger is also touching the first 2 strings. So it on the surface kind of looks like I'm just kind of holding a string, and I am, but there are some additional things that are happening. So I'm touching the 4th string so that it doesn't ring. I'm touching the 2nd string and the 1st string. Another advantage of this is that you can actually loosen up your right hand and pluck quite a few strings. So 4 strings and only hearing 1. Okay. And then if you mute with the thumb, now sometimes you might get, if the thumb's at the wrong place, you might get a harmonic, but right, so I'm getting a little harmonic there kind of due to the position. But if I move over, right, then I'm actually kind of controlling all the strings. So that's helpful, right? So those are some things that might not be completely obvious at first, unless someone kind of explains it like I'm doing, or someone notices a lot of unwanted tones and when you're playing something, and then they can kind of show you a way to fix that. And a lot of times we might get so focused on the tones we're trying to play that we might not notice that we're accidentally playing some other sounds that we're not really intending. Okay, so back to some exercises. Let's talk about a little bit about crossing over on strings, maybe do. So we talked about half steps and whole steps. How about minor thirds and major thirds? Now we can play those on strings, on one string, major thirds, minor thirds. But I'm going to talk a little bit about crossing over strings. So notice if we play a minor third, it's kind of similar to, at least as far as the fret distance, it's similar to the whole step. It's just that instead of playing on the same string 2 frets higher, we're playing on a different string 1 string lower, so, but 2 frets higher. So it's a similar kind of shape. And again, I'm using this technique of having kind of a little bit of an angle. Now let's notice another little detail. So the thumb is following the finger. So it's staying about relative to where the fingers are and just kind of moving up. And I'm keeping the thumb on the back of the neck. And it can be helpful to use a little bit of the part of the finger that's a little more slick than the other. So the pad of the thumb has a tendency to stick. So a little bit lower than that. So kind of a little bit of the crease between the pads of the thumb. So oftentimes if folks don't really know about that, or weren't told, or just didn't think about it, the thumb sometimes does fairly okay on the lower frets, but it kind of tends to go over to the left as you move up. And what happens is there's actually, I mean, if you do this, you'll kind of feel a little strain in the forearm. And so I think also just kind of for hand health and ergonomics, keeping the thumb opposite the second finger is good practice. So we get good support to counterbalance the pressure that the fingers are putting on the front side with the okay. All right. So the thumb, and I end up talking about the thumb a lot in the private lessons and things. Thumb is very important. Okay, so let's talk about another exercise, which is just kind of moving around the major third. I'm going down a major third. And it's similar to the fret distance of a half step, so when you cross over strings. Okay, so it's one fret over, and then one string that sounds lower. Right. So there are 4 intervals altogether that we can practice that are really pretty commonly used in melodies and improvisation. So not sure the exact percentage, but those are very common, the half step, whole step, minor third, and major third. Right. And then, it's interesting that we really only have 2 kind of fret distances, although we're crossing strings. So you might combine those. So let's talk a little bit about the right hand side of things, or I should say the picking hand side of things. So one of the, I would say, very important technical things to do is to learn how to alternate pick. Even if you don't use alternate picking all of the time, it's important to use it on some things some of the time. So on the whole step, we could say down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So, since we're only playing 2 notes, it works out pretty well. So I'm playing down on the lower note and up on the higher note. Okay. And then we could practice that with any of the intervals. Okay. All right. Now the picking hand, if you hold the pick a little bit on the side of the finger, okay, and the thumb, that's kind of the standard textbook way of doing it. You see that in the method books. So I would recommend mastering that as your starting point. And what that does is it gets the hand pretty close to the strings. Okay, and so then you can control some of those unwanted strings with the picking hand as well. Okay, so to sum up for today, so alternate picking, working on some of the intervals that I mentioned, and listening for any unwanted sounds that you might be getting, and all that. All right, everybody. Well, that's going to do it for today's talk. I hope you all enjoyed this, and I hope you have a really great practice session with some of these exercises and things. And I will see you all in the next one.